What's up, everyone? Coming to you a little bit less kempt, more unkempt than usual, but this is about timing, I think. So that's why I'm coming to you now. Forgive my appearance. I may or may not be wearing pants, and you will just have to accept that for the duration of this video, or for however long you watch. The reason that I'm making this video now is because I just found out that everyone's favorite science-based fitness influencer, Jeff Nippard, has dropped a new program that is essentially his take, from what I can tell, his take on high-intensity training. And I've got some thoughts, so stick with me to hear them. Let me start off with the critics, because I've already heard from a few different critics about this program, the fact that he's the one doing this program, how he presented it, how he ran his 100-day experiment. And what I've heard, I think, can be summed up as something like he's selling a maintenance program as a muscle growth program. So in the course of his video, he is in a cut. He's trying to actively lose fat. And for those of you who have done this for any length of time, you will know that it's pretty difficult to add muscle when you are in a cut. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. It can be done even for intermediate, as you get more advanced, it gets more and more difficult. The margins for error get even smaller, and the actual return on investment gets smaller as well. But it's not impossible. However, the fact that he's on a cut and basically based upon the results that his DEXA scan produces and the margin of error that he admits is there, the only thing that can really be said is that he likely just maintained his muscle mass. And yet, the title of the video is something like "Less Time, More Gains." So right up front, there is the intimation that it is a sort of hypertrophy program that people will be gaining a whole bunch of muscle on. And so the critics are pointing this out as sort of false advertising. They're also pointing out, the research clearly states that volume is king. Volume is so much more important than intensity, or that, they're at least at parity, and more sets equals more muscle growth, and all of the things that you've probably heard 1,000 times from other people on the interwebs. They've also said that the proof that he hit, what Jeff says is, I actually got stronger. My final, exercise, pendulum squat or something like that. To have a pendulum squat machine. I have literally never seen one of them in the entire country of Japan. But anyway, I digress. That he got stronger, that his final set of those, his final attempt was a new PR, and he kept setting PRs throughout this, despite the fact that he was in a cut. The critics will say that, well, maybe you weren't training well previously. Okay, we'll get into that maybe later, but they'll say that, okay, intensity of training is a skill as well. The fact that you really dialed up the intensity means that when you're doing these performance sets, well, you're now used to doing performance sets, and so your performance is going to be better because of that tangible, that variable being in the mix. And I suppose there's a little bit there, but the fact that he was able to gain strength, or at least gain proficiency, or at least gain reps and weight over the course of a cut, clearly shows that there was progressive overload, that he was building the capacity to progressively overload throughout. And, regardless of what you want to attribute that to, if he had done that on a typical multiple set higher volume program, despite being on a cut, everyone would have been losing their minds. Oh my God, what is this magic program that he came up with? And yet when he does it on a high intensity program, people say, oh, well, that's explicable by the variable of intensity that he was finally investing some time in, investing some attention to. Okay, that's the critics. Now, for my criticism of Jeff and his presentation of this stuff. I mean, this entire video, this entire experiment, I'm putting that in air quotes because it wasn't, it's not a well-run experiment. There were too many variables. He was, the fact that he was on a cut is already adding in a second variable in addition to the change in training style. Really, if he was trying to experiment, he would have, isolated a single variable, but that's unrealistic in real life. And as I've said in other videos, it's unrealistic even in laboratory settings to truly isolate a single variable, because the fact that you're running an experiment and observing the results is a variable in itself. Anyway, it's basically an infomercial for his new program. It's a sales pitch. It's, hey, look, I've got a new program. I need to do something to introduce it with a splash and convince my legions of followers that this is the new truth, better than the old truth, the one that I was preaching a couple months ago, better than the truth that I was preaching before that. Man, the turnover rate is pretty high these days. This is the same sort of feeling I got from that Who's Enhanced video, the one that caused me to finally unsubscribe from his channel and really put me off of what he was doing. It was so transparently him running cover for people who were clearly enhanced, and then jumping right into, it's amazing what you can do with the right diet. Buy my app, and it'll take care of all your nutrition needs. Okay, yeah, that's the missing piece. I mean, I'm not saying that people's new diet isn't screwed up. Many people's diet could use a lot of work, but that is not going to be the difference maker for the average person with the average genetics that's going to take them from there to the level of the enhanced, steroid blasting people that he featured in his video as being natural lifters. Very off-putting for me. So here is something else I noticed, though. I have been telling people for basically since the start of the genesis of this whole channel was my shift from traditional training or from powerlifting or from traditional bodybuilding style stuff to more of a HIIT style approach. And the fact that I felt like I had discovered a cheat code, not just for resistance training. Yes, I got good results in terms of resistance training, but it was more like a cheat code for life because of how much time it got me back, because of how much more, energy, how much more just mental space I had for other things, my kids, my hobbies, because it healed up my joints, because all of the benefits that were ancillary, but no less important to the training and the training, results themselves. And I've been preaching that for as long as this channel's been around, and to people in my real life, outside the internet, that this kind of training, focusing on intensity, keeping the things short, keeping them focused, getting in, getting out sort of workouts were really the way to go. And I got very little purchase with people in my life who should trust me, who trust me about everything else I say when it comes to training and exercise, who come to me for my opinion and my advice and take it and run with it on literally every other topic that is related to anything in this realm. And yet this thing just water off a duck's back. Until Jeff Nippard said it. Until Jeff said, hey, this is the way that I've trained and I recommend this, and now I have a program. And all of a sudden these people are coming to me saying, I've started training this way. And it's, on one hand, I'm very happy for them. I'm happy, and I hope that it works out really well for them. And I hope that it has as many positive benefits, not positive benefits, redundancy much, that it benefits them as much as it benefited me. And on the other hand, it's a bit like, wow, if only I could be as effective. Maybe what I'm really doing is calling into question my own capacity as a in as an influencer. Don't really love that term, but I suppose that's the lingo these days as a communicator, as my ability to sell this approach apparently is not as good as Jeff Nippard's. So I've got some work to do, apparently. The one thing, though, that does really, I don't know, I want everybody to think about is he spent 100 days training like this. And now he's selling a program. And I mean, he must have designed the program, prior to finishing that 100 days, I assume, unless, he finished the 100 days a long time ago and just didn't tell anyone about it until now, which is just a possibility. Maybe my assumption could be completely off base. But regardless, he's got how much experience training in a high intensity fashion? Like a very limited amount compared to other people out there like Jay Vincent, like Drew Bay, like Keith Richardson, like Mr. America Hart, like the OGs of this space on the internet, at least, right? Not even bring up people like John Little or Mike Menser, Dorian Yates, these kind of guys. Even though I just brought him up, sorry about that. But why would you buy a program from the guy who just started training like this? It boggles my mind a little bit. I mean, most people would have the humility to say, I started training like this and it seems to be working for me. And like, here are the people that I learned from, that I was influenced, that I'm still learning from because I'm new to this. I didn't release any programs on this until, I was at least a year into it with a lot of experimentation. And the only reason that I released a program was because I was offering something new, which was the synergy set approach that I hadn't seen anyone else do. No one in the space had done it. And what Jeff seems to be offering is, I mean, it's old hat. It's been around. It's all everywhere if you look for it. Just look up how to train with high intensity. It's basically to do less sets with higher intensity and make sure you recover enough. 1 to 2 sets per exercise. Push it to failure. Push it beyond failure if you can. I don't know how much he talks about that in the program, but that's my advice to you. We'll get into the advice a little bit later. Some more of that. The other thing about it, though, is like, yeah, he's not an expert. He's hedging his bets. If you look at this program, I think, now look, this is reading into his motives a little bit, which is not a great thing to do. I'm not a mind reader. I wouldn't want to be a mind reader. But it seems to me like there's a good chance, at least possibility, that he's hedging his bets with this. And what I mean by that is, why was he on a cut when he did this? Why did those two things have to coincide temporally? There might have been plenty of explanations for it, but the fact that it did raises the possibility that he didn't think that the low volume approach would really work to build muscle. And so he did it on a cut so that he could at least maintain the muscle that he had, because that's a sort of well accepted method at this point. When you lower your calories, you lower your volume a little bit because you don't have the energy and you can't recover as well. And so maybe he sort of knew that was going to happen. And so that's why he was on the cut, because he didn't trust the fact that it was going to actually build muscle if he was on maintenance or if he was in a bulk or something like that, right? So there's a sort of potential hedging of bets there. That means that, even less expertise is present, is sort of the message it sends to me. So in a way, he's both overselling and underselling HIIT. He's overselling it because he's selling his experience as maintenance, muscle maintenance, while in a caloric deficit. He's selling as a muscle building program, do less, gain more, being the title of the video. But he's also underselling it because he didn't give it a really fair shake. He sort of found out that he could maintain muscle and was happy enough with those results without actually giving it a chance to work in maintenance calories or work in somewhat of a surplus to see how much it could really build. And it's like playing both sides a little bit. Now, I'm not sure whether that's his intention or not, but that does seem to be something worth pointing out. Now, if it serves as a Trojan horse in that it gets a lot of his followers, the people who trust him, to give a higher intensity approach a try, and it works out for them, then great. He's had he's benefited the world in that way, whether intentionally or not, who could say? But if that's the result, then kudos, right? Now, I am a person who believes that intention is really the only ethical quality when it comes to the decisions you make, because we can't control the outcomes. There's too much complexity and unpredictability in the world. But I also am someone who believes that you can't judge another person's intentions because, again, you can't read their mind. You don't know them and you don't know their situation. So I'm going to leave that to those with different ethical scruples, let's say. Okay, now here's what I want people to know about the sort of high intensity. If you are coming to this new and you don't have a whole lot of background in it, and Jeff is your first introduction to it, and maybe you somehow found this video or something like that, or maybe it's a good refresher for everyone else. My belief about high intensity training is that it works for the same reason that high volume training works, which is that the hypertrophic stimulus, the stimulus to adapt in the hypertrophy direction for your body, is equal to the time multiplied by the proximity to failure that you expose your muscles to. So that is to say, if you spend a lot of time kind of near, like a few reps in reserve, removed from failure, you can get a good hypertrophic stimulus, because the time is a big number multiplied by, you're not that close to failure, but it doesn't matter because the time is big. So this would be the multiple set higher volume approach. Or you can go with less time proximal to failure, but a greater proximity to failure, as in training, to momentary muscular failure. And in my case, I will almost every set hit momentary muscular failure and then continue trying to complete the rep for at least 3, 4, sometimes even up to 10 seconds after that. And then I'll usually do some sort of eccentric following that, to really make sure that I get the muscle exhausted in every range. And so that would be the low time proximal to failure compared to a multiple set higher volume approach, but much higher proximity to failure, as in I'm like standing on top of failure. I'm living in failure for the brief time that I'm there. And so the multiplication still works out. And either of these approaches works. If you had one workout to get someone to build as much muscle as possible, it's very much possible. It's very much within the realm of reason to think that a higher volume approach would work. Have them do 5 sets of an exercise and then 5 more for the same muscle group, because you're really going to accumulate time with a reasonable proximity to failure. And therefore the stimulus is going to be that high. That's if you had one workout, or if you had a week of workouts, or if you had a month, like in a lot of these studies. Even if it's a multi-month study, right? This would still be the ideal. This would likely be the better approach if your only goal was create as much hypertrophy as possible. However, if, like an actual human being, you had a lifetime of workouts to consider, I do not think it is the optimal approach anymore, because now you're exposing your body to a whole lot more wear and tear. Training with higher intensity, going to failure, is, in my opinion, my experience, what I've seen, and just using my critical faculties, safer. And if you don't understand why, you should probably look up, other videos on it. I'm not going to go too deep into it here. I'm not going to go to it at all here, but please investigate that. It's safer, less wear and tear. It's going to be so much easier on your joints, and goodness gracious, it's going to save you some time that you can spend doing other things that can allow you to have a more well-rounded life. If you if you're interested in sort of the effects of HIIT, you can check out, I did another video that I will link and at the end of this, and that'll show you what kind of effects, at least that I got, and I've had great results with my other clients. Okay, so anyway, those are my thoughts on Jeff. I don't want to drag on here. Those are thoughts on my those are my thoughts on Jeff Nippard's new program. The fact that he made a program, the fact that this is how he's selling the program, the critics, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in here today. I appreciate your attention, and everybody who supports the channel in all the ways that you know how. I am forever in your debt. So thank you so much. All right. If you want to check out programs that are like unbelievably efficient, that use a lot of the high intensity principles from somebody who's been doing this for several years at this point, training clients in high intensity, making content based on high intensity training principles, you can find those down below, and they're on Udemy at this point, the point of filming this. So you can always find them cheap on there. The links will take you to a place where they're expensive, but they're always going to be on sale on Udemy. Okay, so thank you so much. All right, take it easy, everybody, and I'll see you next time.